Who's making the opening statement for Cape Cod Academy?
I have, Your Honor.
All right, you may make your statement.
My name is Hunter Cadra. My colleagues today are Mrs. Wang, Mr. Lusty, Mr. Soudier, and Mr. McCoy. Your Honor, we present a case to you today about a loving father who has faced a tragedy in his life, and a money-hungry insurance company who is trying to take advantage of his misfortune. During the morning hours of Friday, November 1st, 2013, a propane tank exploded inside of Liam Heisenein's Ford F-150 truck outside of his home, killing him. His $5 million insurance settlement was not provided due to the ruling that it was a suicide. Liam Heisenein was a dedicated father and a loyal husband who was embraced by his community, and his untimely death was a tragedy to all who knew him. The defense would like you to believe that he committed suicide in his own front yard, in proximity to the family he worked hard daily for. They would like you to believe that he had breakfast with his wife and kids, then walked out of his door and blew himself up. We have the duty to present the preponderance of evidence, but there is a presumption in Massachusetts that people don't commit suicide. Therefore, it is the burden of the defense to overcome that presumption. And the truth of the matter is, there isn't any evidence that Liam Heisenein killed himself. Liam was going through a rough financial patch, but being the responsible businessman that he was, he regained his family spending and brought some major clients at work. He suffered through understandable stress of financial strain, but he dealt with the hardship, just as he has before, by quietly taking steps to recover and trying to protect his family. Today you will hear from Liam's son and Willie Silverman, a friend of 15 years, and we anticipate they will say he was not suicidal and the death was a shock to him. You will also hear from a forensic and fire accidental reconstruction expert, and he will testify and describe how Liam clearly did not have enough time to commit suicide. Liam Heisenstein was a dedicated father and one who deeply cared about his family and its future. His wish was for his son Lee to receive the money and not be taken away from a greedy insurance company.
Because a man named Liam Heisenstein is no longer with us. We are also here today because Liam's altruism is what led him to take his own life. Today, we, the defense, will explain to you just how much Liam cared for his family and the lengths he felt he had to go to in order to provide for them. Now, every parent wants to support their family. In Liam's case, he felt it was his responsibility to support his family. Although Liam's son Lee had a job of her own, he was only making slightly more than minimum wage. Liam paid for the house because he did not want the little money Lee made to go toward rent. I want you all to picture this. It's 6:30 in the morning. The sun is coming up on November 1st, 2013. It is a well-known fact that Liam pays his mortgage payments on the 1st of every month. However, today is different. Accent Savings and Loan never received 3 previous payments: August 1st, 2013, September 1st, 2013, or October 1st, 2013. When the foreclosure of his house was inevitable, Liam saw that he had failed in providing a home. So what did Liam do the night before? He goes to the garage, fills his propane tank with a dangerous amount of propane, and causes a leakage so that the following morning he could drive far enough away from the house so no one could get hurt, when he knowingly lights a cigarette with the intent of killing himself. All in hopes of leaving his family with $5 million in his death benefits. The defense will dig further into the strains woven into Liam's life. A well-accredited clinical forensic psychologist by the name of Stevie J. O'Hara will elaborate on Liam's family. She will also go into detail about how it, along with his mental state, played a major role in Liam's final decision on this earth. Jim, the stepson of Liam, will provide the court with an inside look at Liam's daily life prior to his death and what it was like living with someone so engulfed in his obligations. Finally, Samantha Spade will give a first-hand account of her investigation regarding the insurance policy Liam had signed, as well as the financial problems Liam was facing. I truly wish that no one in this room ever has to feel such an immense amount of desperation that they feel the need to take their own life. Death by suicide is a horrible, horrible tragedy, and no one here would disagree. Liam strategically executed his death in a way in which he knew his family would be provided for by his recently purchased insurance policy. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, you may be seated.
Please state your name and age to the court.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Lee Heisen. I'm 31 years old.
Please describe your relationship with Liam Heisenach.
Liam was my father. I had dropped out of Bishop University my freshman.
Objection, Your Honor. The witness is giving a narrative response that goes beyond the scope of the lawyer's question.
Sustained.
What type of father was Liam Heisenach?
He was a very loving and caring father. After I had dropped out of college, he wanted me to return.
What kind of activities did you guys do together?
I served as a carpenter's assistant. Yeah.
What responsibilities did you have by helping her?
I did basically everything he needed me to do, just work around. It would usually take up about a day's work.
From helping your father at work, what did you learn about his company, Heisenach Construction?
He had a very successful company. He worked very hard at what he did, and he had a flawless reputation.
From helping your father at work, what did you learn about his financial status?
He was doing great financially. He had 3 big jobs that he was going to start in December, and he was in the middle of 3 jobs.
What, if anything, do you know about his finances at the time of his death?
I do. I checked his bank statement, and it said he had a very healthy $250,000.
How would you describe Liam's social life after your mother's death on October 28, 2004?
He was more closeted after my mother's death, but after about a year he started to open up and have a normal social life.
What kind of social activities did he participate in?
He was in 3 different he was on 3 softball teams, and in the winter he was in a candlepin bowling league.
Now, please describe your relationship with Isabella.
Isabella and I have sort of a,
Could we lay a little foundation as to who Isabella is, please?
Please tell me, what's the relationship between Isabella and Liam?
Isabella is Liam's wife, I guess.
Please describe your relationship with Isabella.
Me and Isabella have a sort of tough relationship. We don't get along most of the time. She can be mean to me.
What kind of things does she say to you?
She says stuff that,
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Sustained.
Please describe your Isabella's financial status.
She wasn't doing too good financially before marrying my father. After she had married him, she had definitely climbed up a few rungs in the social class.
So what did she tell Liam when he grabbed his credit card from her?
She told him that he would pay for that.
What kind of relationship do you have with Jim, Isabella's son?
We really don't have a good relationship. I don't like them. He is a liar and a manipulative person.
Why do you say that he's a liar?
He tried to convince my father that I was using drugs and an avid drug user.
Now I want to direct your attention to the night before the explosion. What were you doing?
My father had just filled up his propane tank at about 6 p.m. Things were normal.
Why did he fill out the propane tank?
Because he needed to use his forklift in the morning. the next day.
Please describe what, if any, abnormal things that you noticed before the explosion, the night before or the day of.
I didn't notice anything abnormal.
Now I want to direct your attention to the day of the explosion, November 1st, 2013. What happened that morning?
I had woken up, I came downstairs at 7:13 a.m. and saw my father in the kitchen, and I talked to him about the Sox World Series, and how his night was. He was a little tired. Yeah.
What did he ask Isabella to do?
He asked her to go grab
Objection,
him.
Your Honor, hearsay.
Yeah, let's just stay in.
Please tell me what happened that morning after you obtained that sign.
He had asked Isabella to grab him an aspirin because he had a bad headache.
And then why did she leave the kitchen?
She left the kitchen to grab him an aspirin.
Where did she come back after she went to grab the aspirin?
It was kind of strange. She came back from the garage.
How long did she leave to get the aspirin?
She left for about 5 minutes.
Did she get the aspirin?
No, she didn't.
What, if any, abnormal interactions did you notice between Liam and Isabella that morning?
She had given him a big hug and a kiss on the lips.
Is it a typical thing to see?
No, it's not.
When did you hear the explosion?
It was 7:29 a.m. I was hanging out in my room and I just heard it.
What, if any, reaction did you have and what did you do after you hear about the explosion?
I was in shock. I quickly ran to my window and instinctively called the police.
When did you become aware of the insurance that your father had?
After the explosion.
No further questions, Your Honor.
For your loss. Mr. Heisenite, how long did you live at home for after college?
A couple of years.
And you moved in after your mother's death, is that correct?
Yes.
And your father and Isabella married on October 3rd, 2010?
Yes.
His vision was to recreate a family, one which he could provide for and take care of. Is that true?
Yes.
Isn't it true that your relationship with Isabella's son is strained? And do you think that money
We need
was...
an answer.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do you think that money was a point of jealousy between you and Jim?
Yes.
Isn't it also true that you and Isabella didn't see eye to eye?
Yes.
For example, wasn't Isabella condescending about the way you spend your time?
Mm-hmm.
Did you
You have
ever
to answer
witness...
yes or no.
Yes.
Thank you.
Did you ever witness Isabella drinking?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Would you say she did this often?
Yes.
Do you believe that everything was great for your father at the time of his death?
Yes.
Would you say that you and your father had a close relationship?
Yes.
Are you aware, do you believe that you are informed about your father's financial status?
Yes.
Yes, you do.
Yes.
Are you aware that in 2012 your father refused to allow Isabella to co-sign Jim Grace's apartment lease on account of expenses?
No.
Did you know that in July of that same year your father's company was sued for failure to adequately complete a construction site?
No.
Were you even aware of the lawsuit your father's company faced?
No.
I'm assuming that you also do not know the total judgment owed by your father, $5,058,597.82.
No.
In light of this, would you agree that you had and continue to have little knowledge of either your father's personal or business financial records?
No.
No, you disagree.
I disagree.
On October 31st, you went to your father's truck to get him a pair of vice grips, is that correct?
Yes.
You state that you noticed the windows were up, correct?
Yes.
Didn't you also notice that a propane tank was sitting in the cab of his truck?
Yes.
Did you smell anything?
No.
Did you ask your father about why the propane tank was in the cab of his truck?
No. Oh, yes.
Yes, you did.
Yes, I did.
Did you think there was anything unusual to its location?
No.
No. So you were just curious about why he had the propane tank in the cab of his truck.
Yes, I guess.
But you didn't ask about the location of any of the other tools or equipment he had in his truck, is that correct?
Yes.
You say that your father filled the propane tank himself, correct?
Yes.
And this was something you knew him to do regularly.
Yes.
So one could assume that Liam himself knew how much propane was in the tank, correct?
Yes.
And he himself placed the propane tank in the cab of his truck, correct?
Yes.
So he knew where it was located.
Yes.
On the morning of November 1st, you entered the kitchen at precisely 7:13, correct?
Yes.
And around that time, you put a 5-minute breakfast burrito in the microwave?
Yes.
And as you did this, Isabella left to get aspirin for your father, correct?
Yes.
So around 7:18, you took the burrito out just as Isabella was re-entering the kitchen and your father was saying goodbye, correct?
Yes.
And your father immediately left the kitchen for the garage where his truck was parked, true?
Yes.
So you would say that between 7:19 and 7:20, your father was in his truck and it was started.
Yes.
Wasn't it your father's daily ritual to smoke a cigarette in the car on the way to work?
I don't recall.
You don't know your father's daily ritual? At what time did you hear the loud explosion?
7:29.
About 9 minutes after he left the house, correct?
Yes.
And where did this explosion occur?
On my driveway.
Where in your driveway and the location of it to your house?
It was fairly close to our house, I guess.
Was it at the base of the driveway?
Yes.
Thank you. So it was far enough away from the house and the public road that no one else could be injured, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
I do it.
Okay.
Please state your name for the court.
Winnie Silverman.
Can you tell the court about yourself, please?
I am 42 years old and I live just outside of Boston, Massachusetts.
What is your occupation?
I am an independent insurance agent, and I work for my own firm, Silverman Insurance Agency. Once I graduated UMass Boston in 1996, I began my insurance career. I have then worked...
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Witness. Okay.
Please tell me about your relationship with Liam.
I have known Liam for more than 15 years. We were on the same softball team.
Are you aware of the reason he decided to get life insurance?
Well, I've been telling him for many years that he needed life insurance after his first wife died of cancer. But then at one of his construction sites, he saw that one of his workers almost fell off the roof. It was then that he realized that life was short and he needed some sort of policy.
How do you obtain this policy?
Well, I went to his house on March 25th, 2013, because he didn't want to do it online. He wanted to make sure there were no mistakes.
What was contained in Liam's life insurance policy?
He got the $5 million coverage plan.
Who, if anyone, was present during the application process?
Isabella was watching very intently.
And who is Isabella?
Isabella is his second wife, and they met on an online dating site. It was all very fast.
Did Isabella have a reaction while watching Liam fill out his insurance application?
I believe I saw her smile when Liam chose a $5 million policy. And it was kind of odd because when we were doing the medical history, I noticed that Liam circled the box that said he doesn't smoke. But then Isabella came back and
Objection,
said,
Your Honor. Witness
Sustained.
is giving him.
Beyond the scope of the question. Let's ask
And-
another question. He's gonna put another question to you.
The same.
Put a question to her about that.
Okay. What was Isabella talking about? Or sorry. How did Isabella react? Isabella react when Liam circled the no smoking or that he didn't smoke question.
Liam,
Objection, Your Honor. Leading question.
No, he may have it. Foundation, go ahead.
okay, Isabella said, "Come on now, everyone
Objection,
knows
Your
you."
Honor. Hearsay.
No, I'm gonna allow that.
Come on now, everyone knows your morning routine. It was then that Liam circled that he smokes once or twice a day.
Did Liam ever miss softball games?
He usually didn't in past years, but there was one game he missed because he was at the hospital after he had an anaphylactic seizure due to his peanut allergy.
How did he have a seizure?
Well, he was eating some cookies that had peanuts in them, even though they were supposed to be nut-free.
Why would he eat a cookie with peanuts?
They were from the bakery. Isabella got them for him.
Does he own an EpiPen for this allergy?
Yes, he said he kept it on his nightstand, but Isabella was too frantic to find it.
During the softball season of 2013, was Liam able to play in the games?
He did, but he wasn't as active of a member. He said he was busy at work. I could tell by the stress in his voice.
What was your initial reaction when you heard of Liam's death?
I was shocked. I just didn't seem characteristic.
What was his general state of being?
Liam, well, we went to the first game of the World Series. We had a great time. He loved baseball. He was very relaxed and said everything was going great. He never seemed depressed. I know he was not suicidal.
Why is Liam's insurance company trying to discredit his policy and not pay it in full?
Well, it's just a common case that we see every day at the firm. Insurance companies taking your premiums and becoming unwilling to pay out when it's time.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Cross-examination.
Was Liam a close friend of yours
Yes,
for over 15 years?
yes,
You played on a softball team with Liam,
that is
correct?
correct.
Would you say that it was Liam's only free time?
Yes,
Was Liam often taking care of his first wife and working?
yes,
Did Liam take his first wife's death extremely hard?
yes,
And you were aware of this because you were a close friend of Liam's, correct?
correct.
When Liam's first wife passed, did Lee drop out of college?
Yes,
And Lee moved in with Liam?
that's correct.
Liam said that it was important for him to support Lee, correct?
Yes,
In your opinion, and as his friend, would you say that this was one of his main goals as a parent?
he loves to support his family because that's what is important to him.
Would you say that he would do anything to make sure Lee had a good life?
Yes,
After they got married, did Liam move Isabella into his home along with her child Jim?
that's correct.
Was Liam around a lot less when this happened?
Yes,
And he missed many softball games, correct?
that is correct.
And softball, as you said earlier, was one of his only hobbies.
Yes.
Did he give a reason for missing so many games?
Well, he said he was busy at work.
Did Liam seem stressed at all during this time?
Yes,
Would you say that you could hear the stress in his voice?
yes, I did.
As a friend of Liam's, did his stress concern you?
I just thought it was normal. Work just becomes busy.
Did Liam first spoke to you about a life insurance policy after his first wife's death, correct?
Yes,
But he only asked you to get him a few quotes a little before his death, correct?
yeah,
Liam said he wanted to get $5 million covered with his life insurance.
that is correct.
Were you aware that his company was sued for this amount only a few years before?
No, I'm not aware.
The night before his death, you saw him, correct?
Yes,
Where was it that you saw him?
I saw him at the World Series game.
And you were with him because you're a close friend, right?
Yes,
And at this game, did he seem very relaxed?
yes.
And this was a contrast to his previous stress about work?
Well, he loved baseball.
Okay.
He would just-
Yes or no? Answer
Yes.
please. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give before the court in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Okay, you may take a seat.
Can you please state your name, age, and address?
My name is Philip R. Rupp. I am 65 years old and live at 561 Bell Lane, Northside, Massachusetts.
And what is your current occupation?
Currently, I'm the principal of a fire safety consulting firm called Rupp, Burnham and Fry.
And what do you do in your job?
So we offer consultation in the fields of fire safety and fire accident reconstruction.
And what is your level of education?
I received a Bachelor of Science degree from Mass Maritime Academy in fire safety technology and a Master of Science degree from UMass Amherst in forensic sciences, concentrating in fire sciences.
And how many years of experience have you had in the field?
I've served 35 years of experience in the fields of fire safety and fire accident reconstruction. I've also served 25 years as a firefighter in Boston and 5 years as a forensic arson specialist for the Massachusetts Fire Marshal's Office.
And can you tell us about some of your previous work experiences?
Like I said, I was a firefighter in Boston, a forensic arson specialist, and I also worked on cases involving fire accident reconstruction.
And what are some of your previous clients?
Some of my previous clients have included federal and state law enforcement agencies, prosecutors, and private individuals private individuals and businesses involving fires and explosions.
And what kind of professional leadership positions have you held?
So I'm the former president of both the National Fire Forensics Association and the American Fire Scene Reconstruction Association, and I'm also a long-term member of the American Academy of Fire Science.
And what sort of training have you received?
So I received training from the Massachusetts Fire Academy and the Massachusetts State Police Academy in forensics, and I've also received training in the fields of arson investigation, fire prevention, handling and storing of hazardous materials, and fire accident reconstruction.
And have you received any awards or accolades?
I've received the Expert of Experts Award from the American College of Fire Forensic Experts.
Your Honor, at this time, I ask that Mr. Rupp may be qualified as an expert witness.
All right, in this setting, I will qualify, but in a real court, it's improper to ask a judge in front of a jury to put an imprimatur on an expert witness. So what you do is you go through the foundation, as you have done, and then say, Your Honor, can we see you at sidebar, so that both the plaintiff and defense counsel go to sidebar, and you say, Judge, I offer this person as an expert witness. And that way, the judge isn't saying to the jury, you know, he's an expert witness, believe him. Okay, so just for future reference.
Okay.
Now, I'm not sure what they do at the moot court. Huh?
We don't have a jury.
Oh, okay, you do it, I guess you do it that way then. But if you want to become a lawyer, try a lawyer, you want
Okay. So why are you here and what is your relationship to the case?
I was retained by the attorneys of the plaintiff's side of this case to analyze the forensic evidence and to render opinion on whether the decedent died of a accidental explosion.
And how did you investigate the scene?
So I examined some photographs of the scene as well as examined the body, the tank, the vehicle, and the property, and I also interviewed Lee Heisenai.
And what did you look for at the scene?
So at the scene, I looked for the fire residue and the burn patterns on the things such as the body, the tank, the vehicle, and the property, and I also examined the location of the body.
And could you describe the scene in further detail?
So according to the affidavit of Lee Heisenai, the tank of the propane tank was located on the floor of the backseat of the vehicle, which was a 2010 Ford F-150 quad cab pickup truck. The body was located through the front windshield. The propane tank had an open valve. I was unable to determine if the valve was manually opened or if it was opened from the explosion. And there was also a cigarette packet and lighter found on the passenger seat.
And what did the propane tank look like?
So when I examined it, it had a great deal of rust and corrosion on it, and from my observations I concluded it had to be at least 10 years old. There was also no OBD valve.
And what are some ramifications that could follow having a corroded and rusted propane tank?
So when a propane tank is rusted and corroded, there's much more of a chance for the tank to leak.
And what could happen if there's no OBD valve?
So an OBD valve, the overfill protection device, basically only lets gas enter or out of the tank when it's attached to a connector. And so when, you know, this doesn't matter if the valve's open or closed. So when you don't have one of these OBD valves, it also increases the chance of leaking.
Can propane be detected?
So normal propane is odorless. It can only be detected by smell if you add an odorant to it. In this case, the odorant mercaptan is added to it to give it the scent of rotten eggs, so that can be easily detected by smell.
And can you describe some more properties of propane?
Propane is heavier than air, so it sinks. It also doesn't dissipate rapidly, so it tends to cool together. And like I said, it's also odorless.
And do you believe Liam would have had sufficient amount of time to intentionally cause the explosion himself?
My opinion is that he did not have enough time. So, based on, you know, the affidavit of Jim Grace, he was pressed for time leaving the house he left after Jim Grace left, so leaving the house, he left so he left the house after Jim Grace.
Objection, Your Honor, calls for a narrative.
I just put another question to him. Rephrase the question. Well, what is your understanding of?
Well, I meant to say that the
Would
explosion.
the propane be lingering in the car? How did you determine this?
Alright, so I determined this by, I took a cylindrical tank of similar size and a rim of similar size, and I measured how much gas would be needed to create an explosion that size, which would be no less than 30 pounds, and from my experiment, it took 8 minutes for that to happen.
And
what do you believe?
I think time is up. All right, now we'll go to
And
cross-examination.
experiences in cases involving the reconstruction of accidental fires and explosions.
Yeah.
And your clientele for these cases have included law enforcement agencies, prosecutors, and private businesses, right?
Yes.
So essentially, you've helped these institutions conclude that their fire or explosions were an accident.
Yes.
Is it true that you are the former president of 2 separate fire analysis associations?
Yes.
And yet, thus far, you haven't offered any reason as to why you are no longer the president. Is that true?
Yes, I'm no longer the president.
Directing you to your field of expertise, do you think that propane gas is dangerous?
I do, yeah.
And when you were called by the plaintiff to investigate Liam Heisenai's death, do you think that you were biased towards concluding that it was an accident? Based on your prior casework?
I do, I think.
You noted in your investigation that you believe propane gas is still being distributed to some customers without odorant, correct?
Yes.
Yet, to a degree of scientific certainty, you cannot claim that Liam's propane lacked a warning odorant.
Yeah.
Using your knowledge of propane tanks, you determined that Liam did not have enough time to cause the explosion according to Lee's timeline of the day of November 1st, 2013.
Yes.
However, you admitted that it is possible that Liam intentionally opened the valve of the tank the night before, allowing propane gas to fill the cab of the truck.
Well, it would have dissipated by morning.
But you've admitted that it is possible that he manually opened the valve, correct?
Yeah, but if it was the night before, it wouldn't be dissipated.
You
by
can't
morning.
say that to a degree of scientific certainty, can you?
I guess not.
Furthermore, you discovered that the valve was opened when analyzing the propane tank.
Yes.
And you cannot say that it was opened by accident to reconfirm this question.
Right. I couldn't determine that.
And in your final conclusion, you determined that the explosion was likely caused by Liam lighting a cigarette.
Yes.
And this lighter was found on the passenger side of the cab, correct?
Yeah.
And earlier you noted that when propane gas collects in a closed compartment, it can ignite as a result of a spark.
Yeah.
But if you said that the propane tank was last seen in the rear of the cab, and Liam presumably lit the cigarette in the front seat, how could he have accidentally ignited the gas that collected in the back of the cab?
Well, it was in the back seat, right? So,
If Liam lit the cigarette in the front seat.
well, since it sinks the ground in pools, so it could have pooled to the front on the ground.
Well, thank you. No further questioning.
I do.
All right,
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please state your name and age for the court.
My name is Jim Grace and I'm 24 years old.
What is your relationship to the decedent?
Liam Heisenai was the second husband of my mother, Isabella.
Where do you currently reside?
I currently reside at 13 Chapel Hill Drive in Oak Hill, Massachusetts.
How long have you lived here?
I've lived there since 2014.
Where did you live before?
I lived at 69 Henson Road in the same town.
When did you begin living on Hanson Road?
I began living there in 2010 when Isabella and Liam married.
Where did you attend high school?
I attended high school at Sullivan Academy in Vermont.
Did you attend college after this?
Yes, I did.
Where did you attend?
Dartmouth College in New Hampshire.
Did you graduate from Dartmouth?
No, I did not.
Why not?
Lee Rubin refused to pay the expenses for my
What can you tell me about the beginning of Liam and Isabella's marriage?
At the very beginning of Liam and Isabella's marriage, Liam was very generous and spent a lot of money to help Isabella and I out. But this was not always the case afterwards.
Can you tell me anything else about this?
Sure. During the first 3 weeks of Leah and Isabella being together, I received a free MacBook and a free iPhone from him. Yet afterwards, Liam began criticizing my credit card bill and actually kept Isabella's credit card bill locked in a drawer.
And how has Liam's death affected you?
I'm very unchanged, unmoved by his death. Liam was never my father, and he never would be.
Are there any other members of Liam's family?
Yes.
Who?
Lee Heisenai.
And how is your relationship with Lee?
Lee and I never truly became good friends. He's always treated my mother and I as if we were just strangers living in his house.
Can you tell me anything else about Lee?
Yes, I based on things that I've heard. He was a much more lively person with a great future ahead of him when his mother was alive.
Do you know anything about Lee's career?
Yes, he works at Walmart.
And do you know anything about his social life?
He does not have much of one besides playing video games at home.
Is there anything else you can tell me about Lee? Do you know anything about his education?
Yes, he went to Bishop's College in Quebec for a time but dropped out after the death of his mother.
Do you know what he did after dropping out?
He helped his father out in his construction business.
And how was your relationship with his father, Liam?
Their relations were rather okay, but because of the way Lee's life turned out after the death of his mother, Lee became badly affected.
And how was he affected?
He blamed himself a little bit, and he...
Do you have any specific examples?
At night he started pacing around in his study afterwards.
Can you tell me anything else about this? In the weeks leading up to his death?
He grew very reserved, Liam, and spent a lot of time alone.
Directing your attention to the week before Liam's death, did anything significant happen?
Yes. On the Monday before he died, Isabella sent me into his study to collect his credit card because of a purchase I needed to make, and I discovered a few things while I was there.
What did you find?
First up, I discovered an article from the Safety and Health magazine about propane explosions at construction sites.
Did you find anything else?
Yes, I also found a file marked judgment for $5 million with Liam's name on it.
Was there a date on this judgment?
September 4th, 2012.
What, if anything, did you do after finding the judgment?
I took a picture of it with my phone and showed my mother.
Did you find anything else that day?
Yes, I did. In the study, I also found a prescription for lorazepam.
Did you notice anything about the medication?
It was marked take as needed, and it was very oddly placed because most medicines in our house are located in the master bedroom, but not this one.
Now I would like to direct your attention to November 1st, 2013. What can you tell me about that morning?
I was the first one up as per usual, and by 6:30 in the morning I was in the kitchen doing homework.
What happened next?
At that time, 6:30, I heard Liam's alarm go off, and by 7 o'clock he had come downstairs to the kitchen.
What is the next thing you remember?
My mother, Isabella, started making omelets, which was a very lovely experience because she does not typically make them, and they're representative of happy memories for me.
Did you notice anything specific about Liam after he had come down?
He was very tired that day. I couldn't tell whether it was because he was hungover or because of actions of his son.
And what is the next thing you remember?
Lee came down stairs and started talking to Liam about the PAX convention.
And was this a typical topic of discussion between the two?
No, it was not. In fact, the fact that Liam seemed rather excited and happy when speaking with him about this was rather interesting because he does not usually approve of his excessive video game.
And what happened next?
After 7:15, I finished up my breakfast early, as quickly as I could, and started walking out to my car because of the way our garage and parking is set up. I needed to be out before Liam did.
And do you remember any additional details about November 1st?
Yes. I left as soon as I possibly could, and it turned out that I left immediately before the accident. Liam's the garage door opened
Thank you.
just as I did.
And what is your overall reaction to the death?
Overall, I don't have much, it doesn't affect me that much emotionally. However, I do feel for the loss that my mother had as well as the loss that we did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Time is up. All right, cross-examination.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Would you say that you had a good relationship with your stepfather, Liam?
No, I would not.
Okay, so in page 2 of your affidavit, on paragraph 7, you described Liam as unbearable. Would you ever say that Liam's presence to you was overwhelming?
Yes.
Okay. And you explained earlier that you were forced to leave and not finish your studies at Dartmouth College, correct?
Correct.
Could you please explain the circumstances around why you had to leave?
Sure. I had a full ride to Dartmouth and I had to pay, my parents had to pay no expenses based on that. However, I had to have them pay $38,000 a year simply because of I had to have a place to live when I was at Dartmouth, and that was too much for them.
So you were expecting your parents to pay $38,000 a year for you to live in the loft, correct?
Correct.
Also in your affidavit, you state that you believe that $38,000 a year is an insignificant amount of money, correct?
For Liam, yes.
So you believe that he should have been financially stable enough to help provide for you to pay for your $38,000 loft?
At the time, that is what I think.
Okay. After you learned that your stepfather was no longer able to help finance your living conditions, were you ever resentful of him?
Yes.
As you said earlier, you said that omelets for your family is a rare guilty pleasure. Would you say omelets are only for special occasions?
They were more just reminiscent of a time when it was just Isabella and I, not necessarily special occasions.
So that you would say that the omelets remind you of happy memories or good times?
Yes.
Okay, so would you say that there was anything special on the day of Liam's death that may have influenced your mother into making omelets, since you said that they were reminding her of happier times?
It is possible.
Okay.
Actually, no.
Thank you. Can you please remind us all at what time that morning on November 1st did you leave the house?
7:20.
Okay, thank you. Do you recall at approximately what time did your mother Isabella call you to let you know about the death of Liam?
I do not remember.
Okay, in your affidavit you do say that it was a few hours later, so in case you forgot, that is what you said. But knowing now that on November 1st, Liam died just 9 minutes after you left the house that morning, do you find it strange at all that it took your mother several hours after the death to call you and let you know?
No, I did not.
Was there anything strange in your mother's voice when she called you to let you know? Was she, did she seem sad or happy or
She was
concerned?
very serious.
Very serious, so she wasn't crying?
No.
Okay, thank you. One last question for you. Are you sorry that Liam is dead?
Only for how it affected Isabella and me.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you,
Okay.
Your Honor.
What you need to do is, for instance, the person who made the opening, Mr. Hunter, you might want to say, Your Honor, we rest our case at this point, and then it'll switch over to the defense to call, because now we're a little bit out of order, as you can see. So I have to turn now to the defense, and rather than recreate Mr. Grace again, why don't we go to Samantha Spade?
Your Honor, we would like to call Samantha Spade to the stand.
Okay, thank you, you may sit down.
Can you please state your name and age for the court?
My name is Samantha Spade and I'm 52 years old.
And where do you currently reside?
I currently reside at 17 East Ogden Avenue in Gainesville, Florida.
Are you employed, and if so, where?
Yes, I'm currently employed at the Consolidated Brokers of Boise Insurance Company.
Is there anything about your past that you would like to share with the court today?
Yes, when I was much younger, I made a few dumb mistakes and I was convicted for grand theft auto.
Did this event affect your life?
Yes, it did. After my conviction, it became hard to pursue the career in law enforcement that I wanted to.
Did you make the most out of your opportunity to work for CBB Insurance?
I definitely did. I saw the experience as a sort of fresh start and I was very motivated to make the most of the situation.
Is there any other ways you made the most out of the situation?
Yes, I received several promotions during my time, including becoming a level 5 claims investigator, one of which there are only 4 in the country.
When did you first become involved in the Heisenai case?
I first became involved in the Heisenai case in November of 2013.
Are there any strategies your company takes to ensure the validity of your investigation?
Yes, before I begin my investigation, I'm not given any views of our company's view of the case, so it doesn't taint my perception of the case.
Did you receive any information about the case before beginning your investigation?
Yes, I did.
What?
I received the claim file submitted by Isabella Heisenai.
Did you use this information to prepare for your investigation before leaving from Florida?
Yes, I did.
How else did you prepare for your investigation?
I called up Isabella Heisenai, Mr. Heisenai's widow, and asked her to set up an interview.
Can you please describe the phone call a little more?
Yes, I called Isabella and she was ready to meet with me for an interview on November 17th, but she did ask that the interview take place not at her place of residence, as it was too hard for her to answer those questions about her husband at the place where the suicide took place.
Can you please describe how the interview with Isabella went?
The interview with Isabella didn't shed much light on the circumstances surrounding Mr. Heisenai's death, but I did learn a lot about Isabella.
What did you learn about her?
I noticed that she spoke quickly with a bit of an accent, and she seemed a little nervous, but I did chalk that up to the fact that she did just lose her husband.
What did you ask her during the interview?
I asked her about the circumstances surrounding her husband's death.
And how did she describe this death?
She didn't elaborate too much, but she went over the morning, she said he kissed her goodbye, got in his truck, and then the explosion took place.
Did she mention anything else that she did the day of the explosion?
No, she did not.
Did she ask you anything at all during the interview, and if so, what?
She did ask me if I thought she was connected to the death somehow, but I assured her no.
What happened next?
I showed her the policy that showed that she was not the beneficiary of the money, and she began to cry.
And this concluded your interview, so what, if anything, happened after that?
The next morning, I drove to the Heisenai residence to conduct my interview at the scene.
Can you describe your interactions with Lee once you got to the scene?
Yes, I asked Lee to elaborate a little bit about his father's mental state before his death.
And how did Lee describe the mental state before the death?
He described some unusual behaviors.
What unusual behaviors?
He had seen his father crying while watching a baseball game. He had noted his father screaming, yelling in his office, and he had noticed his father developing bags under his eyes as he seemed very tired.
What happened next?
Lee took me to his father's office and told me I could look around.
What did you find in the files in the office?
I found files relating to Liam's financial state around the time of his death.
What trouble was his company in, if any?
3 years prior, he had been sued for failure to complete construction for around $5 million. I found that to pay this off, he had to mortgage his house, but he was having difficulty paying back the bank for this money.
Was there anything else you found in his desk?
Could you restate?
Did you find anything else located inside Liam's desk, inside his office?
I can't currently recall.
Are you aware, when were the payments for Liam's mortgage due?
The payments were due on the 1st of every month.
And when did Liam commit suicide?
He committed suicide on November 1st, 2013.
What would have happened if Liam had missed this payment, making it his 4th missed payment?
If he missed his 4th payment, then his house would have been foreclosed on and his family would have lost everything.
Do you believe that Liam had reached a point in his financial life where he was no longer able to make any of his payments?
I do.
What, if anything, happened after your investigation of his office?
I met with Jim Grace in the hallway.
Can you please describe this interaction with Jim?
He mentioned something about his stepbrother Lee being an idiot and told me that I should vacate the house.
Did you return to finish your investigation?
I did. I returned the next morning at 6 o'clock sharp.
And what did you do upon returning?
I parked in the driveway. I witnessed Jim Grace leave for the day, and about an hour later I saw Isabella leave, but I blocked her exit with my car.
How did she react when you blocked her with the car?
Well, I went down to approach her, and at which case I informed her that I know that she killed her, I knew that she killed her husband and that the police were coming.
And why did she say that? Oh, is there anything else that she did while this interaction happened?
She responded that she knew that he did it to himself and that she could prove it.
Why did she say that she could prove it?
She led me inside to Lee's room and she showed me a hastily written suicide note that she had found stuffed in Lee's desk.
Although this note seemed to be hastily written, is there any way to suggest that there is no way possible that Liam could have written the note?
There's no evidence to show that Liam could not have written the note.
Thank you.
You were convicted of grand theft auto. Do you recall how much time you spent in prison?
I do not.
What is your position at CBB Insurance?
I'm a level 5 claims investigator.
Do you consider this a prestigious position?
I do.
What job did you work before receiving your position at CBB Insurance?
I worked a couple various jobs, nothing I was very passionate about.
Okay. What experience was required to begin your work at CBB Insurance? Did you find it challenging at first?
That's 2 questions.
Oh, sorry.
One at a time.
What experience was required to begin working at CBB Insurance?
They required no previous experience to begin as a level 1 investigator.
Did you find it challenging at first?
Somewhat.
Somewhat. How long did it take you to reach your position of a level 5 investigator?
About 10 years.
10 years? Okay. So in 2 years you had a job that requires no professional experience or any experience at all. You were handling cases of $1 to $5 million. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. The level of experience was needed for a level 1 position, but as I said before, experience was needed to become a level 5 investigator, which I am today, to investigate much higher stakes cases.
And no previous experience is required for the job, correct? Level 1 investigator.
For level 1, yes.
Okay. You stated in your affidavit on page 1, paragraph 6, that you saw the Mr. Hydes and I case as a way, and I quote, to prove what it takes to become a level 6 investigator.
I did.
Did this change your approach to the case?
No, not at all.
You also stated that Mrs. Hydes and I was a waitress before meeting Liam.
She was.
Did you think she was not making a lot of money?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know her salary.
You claimed in your affidavit, page 3, paragraph 20, that you could tell that Isabel had a guilty conscience and that, and I quote, was trying to hide something from me. Is this correct?
Yes.
You came to the conclusion that her acting this way is because she was hiding a suicide note that she had just found in Lee's room. Is that true?
That is true.
Did she later show you that note?
She did show me that note.
Do you believe her guilty conscience could have been from something not from the note and something that had a possible involvement in the death of Liam?
I don't believe so.
I don't believe so. No further questions.
Can you redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. You may step down.
Yes, the defense would like to call Dr. O'Hara to the stand.
Would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that testimony about to give before the court in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Will you please state your name for the court?
My name is Stevie J.R.
Can you describe a bit of your educational background for the court?
Sure. I got my bachelor's in science in forensics. I got my bachelor's in science in criminal justice at Bryant University, which I graduated cum laude. After that, I got my PhD at Harvard University for clinical psychology. And after that, I attended Boston University, and I got my master's in professional studies in forensic science, from which I also graduated cum laude.
All right. Can you describe your current occupation?
I'm a forensic clinical psychologist for the company Drake and Mason LLP in Boston, Massachusetts.
Can you describe what exactly is forensic psychology?
Forensic psychology, I'm sorry, can you rephrase the question?
Can you just briefly outline what it means to be a forensic psychologist?
To be a forensic psychologist, you have to undergo many different work experiences, and you have to have a full understanding of what forensic psychology really is, which shows that it's an outline of how a victim would portray psychological thoughts before causes of injury or death.
Can you just give a little bit of your experience working in that field?
From 1976 to 1980, I was a police officer. After that, I worked for the Department of youth services in Taunton, Massachusetts, in which I would help the juveniles and aid them until they were ready to go court trials. After that, I was part of the FBI in Quantico, Virginia, where I was a field agent. And from 2000 to 2010, I worked as the area director in Boston, Massachusetts for the FBI Behavioral Analysis Unit.
And then what is your current occupation?
I'm a clinical forensic psychologist.
Thank you. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Do you recognize this document?
Yes, it's my curriculum vitae.
Your Honor, I ask that this document be marked Exhibit A for identification only.
Okay, Exhibit A.
Thank you. And also at this time, I would ask that the court recognize Dr. O'Hara as an expert witness on the topic of forensic psychology.
Subject to what I had said previously, I will.
Thank you. So, can you just describe how you first got involved with this case?
I was contacted in early 2015 by the Consolidated Brokers of Boise Insurance Company, located in Boise, Idaho,
What for?
to conduct a psychological autopsy on Liam Heisenberg.
And what exactly is a psychological autopsy?
It's a brief outline of the victim's patterns before death, how they would react to emotional upsets, etc. And so you could really see how the victim was thinking before they were either committed suicide or before there was an accident.
And going about doing this, where did you start your investigation?
I was going to start by interviewing each person relevant to the case, but I figured that in this case especially, it would not be very effective to figure out what his psychological state was at the time of his death. Instead, I